So we're off to Guisborough for a bit of shopping because, as usual, I'm out of one or two annoying things. We've had such a grim few days. It's been wet, wet, wet. At least there was nearly an inch rain one day, and then 2 days later 17mm, mixing the units obviously, but the next few days actually doesn't look too bad, but it's far from settled really. There's a period where high pressure comes right over the country, and it's a relatively mild high, so it may be slightly frosty, but not not a cold high. So that should just dry things out a bit. Though really, I think this time of year you want strong wind to dry things out. But generally speaking, the fields still don't look too bad. I mean, where my sheep are down the bottom, when it was actually lashing down, there was standing water. But it's amazing how it's dried up. I think the worst problem is on the roads, where all the drains for all tail, like everywhere nearly. Well, a lot of problems. Someone had used a drone to take aerial photos of the river being very high around Malton, and it was very impressive because it was sunny like this. It might even have been this morning, to be honest, but really everything was just going exactly as it's supposed to go. There's limits to where it's allowed to come out onto certain fields, and then there's an embankment. So really things are working as they should, although they're having to, I wouldn't really call it emergency pumping, it's more like routine pumping. When it stays high for more than a day or two, they have to start pumping the tributaries over the bank into the main river channel, else they just back up. I say tributaries, it could just be just normal drainage or even groundwater, whatever, or, you know, given it, if it was just allowed to do its thing, it would have a lot of gravelly stuff coming down there. Anyway, if to be just allowed to do its thing, it would have been everywhere, wouldn't it? So someone was saying, well, God knows what they actually spend on all this, like emergency, in inverted commas, pumping. Why can't they have a more permanent system with a... Well, I think that's exactly what they need. I mean, they literally have vehicles stood there and somebody more or less manning it, at least through the day, to keep pumping. Why can't they have a permanent pump house that runs on electric and just triggers itself automatically? It's really not that difficult, is it? Surely that would be infinitely better, because it isn't something that... Well, it doesn't happen every year, but it's like every third or fourth year there's a relatively major incident which needs this pumping. But it's never been too bad this side. Like, these last two events have been rather worse, because it was kind of coming up from the southwest, so it was worse that side of the hill by some margin, almost double the rain in some places. Although I must admit I have some misgivings as to how well my weather station catches rain, especially if it's windy, because it literally can't possibly catch it all. if it's windy, because it's, if you imagine the top of the bucket where what catches it tipped on a side, obviously it only catches, say, maybe half as much, or ultimately or hardly any of it. But it's really kind of similar. If it's blowing a strong wind, you don't catch it all. Though I think it's rare that it's worse than, say, 10 or 15%, which is not that bad. You can introduce an offset to it, but I don't like it because it works like it says 1mm, then it sort of suddenly adds one on, if you know what I mean. So it looks a bit weird. So I have toyed with that, but I'm taking it off again for now. Well, actually, I did have the thing in the house because it needed a new temperature humidity sensor about 2 months ago, and when I had it in the house, I just like, you can do it's not really truly an offset, it's more like a calibration internally. That's too posh a word for it really, because all you do is adjust a screw which makes it tip a little bit sooner or a little bit later, and I adjusted that to make it go a little bit longer before it tipped each time, so or quicker, tip quicker. But it definitely did improve things, so I did it the right way, even though I'm not saying it right. See, the road's dry up here, look. I was quite surprised. In my bathroom I had the heated towel rail on. In fact, it's been on for a couple of weeks, I haven't turned it off. But this morning, today, the sun streaming through the window, it was almost too warm in there. I turned it on for a change. But you can normally do that. I often just turn it on if it's sunny. It can more or less stay warm enough without. But or I might just turn it on overnight or something. You can see right across to the Pennines today, to the left. It's actually quite good visit. This is really rather nice light. Winter sunlight is often really rather lovely, though it can be a little bit sort of glaring, you could say. But I don't know if I should really speak about such things on a video like this, but we just had a bit of an upset yesterday. I wasn't particularly involved in it. This is Sunday. There's a lad in the village. I say a lad, he's in his 40s, early 40s, I think he's 43. And they got two quite young kids. Oldest one is going to secondary school. Youngest one, I don't think youngest one is yet. He's going to Castleton. And they were there when this happened, so he'd been helping local builder put a chimney cowl on, which is not a particularly big job really, but he needed ladders up to it, and it didn't help. It started raining just as they were doing it. I don't know whether that was in any way implicated. Perhaps he was a bit stressed, but anyway, all he'd done really is passed one or two items up. It might have been the tools, it might have been the cowl itself, up the ladder. He went back down, and I don't know where he even made it back to the house, but he just got up keeled over. And builder, I'm not going to use, obviously I know the name, I'm not going to use the name. He realised something was wrong and was coming down, and he appeared to be having a fit. He was sort of shaking uncontrollably. Anyway, whether that's truly, I'm not saying he was fitting as in an epileptic fit, but something of that nature. And then they thought he might be having a stroke, or he was having a heart attack. I mean, heart attacks can do all sorts of strange things. But anyway, obviously it was an emergency ambulance, job. Ambulance came out reasonably promptly. Builder took the 2 kids up to his relatives to look after him, because it was a bit upsetting for him having, well, it was upsetting from the start. The soil was having the fitting and carry on, and he sort of basically told them lies about how it was alright because the ambulance was there and he was going to be good, etc. But anyway, took him into hospital, and again, I shouldn't really say all these details, but what I can say, I think, they did some blood tests and things and found that he had a long-term problem, which was probably in some way related to it. Now, again, I'm trying to be discreet, really, because I don't know. I do know some of the people listeners. So he will probably be having further treatment for these other issues, and who knows. Well, at this stage, I mean, nobody knows. Firstly, clearly there's been some sort of trigger to this, like, seizure type event, and but I wonder. I think we all occasionally have our own moments where we're maybe a bit borderline on things like diabetes and things like that. You know, where you say you've missed a meal or something like that, or you're doing something stressful. But I don't think that's what happened, really. It was rather unclear what did, because it's certainly climbing up a ladder that didn't do it. He's, generally speaking, a reasonably fit fellow. He's not the fittest person you've ever met, but he was with me sawing logs up with a chainsaw, and he wasn't particularly expert at it, but he didn't give the impression he couldn't do it hardly. So really, I'm at a loss as to what's happened. It's quite strange. And anyway, what I would say, he was on Facebook this morning, not like posting messages, but I saw he'd been on, so we use Facebook Messenger a lot at around us nowadays. And I sent him a message, we heard what happened and we're thinking of him. And he just says, well, he didn't really say, oh, I'm alright now, but he says, well, thanks for that, and it was a bit of a shock. Well, at this point, I don't suppose anything much should be any clearer than it was yesterday, with it being Sunday yesterday. They'll be doing tests and things, but I would imagine whatever's going on, you'll be back out perhaps as early as today or tomorrow. They'll do some tests. They don't keep you in hospital for the sake of it nowadays, and quite right too. If he has some treatment lined up, he'll be doing it kind of outpatiency, I suppose. Somebody's coming down behind me with an orange flashing light on. I don't know what that's all about. It looks like a normal pickup. It's not police. It's orange, not blue. I think it's just somebody with this bloody light on the do there somewhere. Oh, it's a van. It's gone off now. Maybe we just tested it. But Builder, he said, it's actually quite. It sort of shook him up, I think, as much as anything, because firstly, he's only the same age as himself, more within a year or so, and they both got kids of similar age, which is why they are quite friendly, actually, as much as out. And he said, well, it could have been me, because it was so out of the blue. It wasn't. You would have thought, you know, if it was a great big fat fellow or something, where you thought, oh, he might be having a, you know, it sounds almost mean, but you know, you could perhaps be less surprised by that. If he was overweight, I say he's not exactly skinny, but you know, either he's a bit like a rugby player type build. I think he's always been a relatively chunky sort of build. Yeah, stop talking about it. Anyway, so we'll find out more details eventually without speculating. me to stop and readjust his back before he goes up Burke Brown. Just going this way because I want to get petrol at the co-op. It's not particularly cheaper, or it's about the same really. But in any case, they take fuel card for diesel, which I ought to get. So I'm about on below half anyway. I haven't got that much need for it, but I'm just surprised actually how much I've used. It's a very grim time of year though. I really detest this time of year for more than one reason, but the primary reason I hate it so much is the low light levels, the early sunset particularly. Just the short day length really, because I mean round farm, if you get your feeding round done, but it takes, if you rush round, it takes till 10 or if not 11, and if you take it a bit more leisurely it can easily be like at least 12 o'clock and then the sheep are still to do. It's interesting they've put these like things on the side to stop people overtaking down the middle. I don't see why, because especially say you've got something like that lorry, you're only doing 50-ish miles an hour, you could have just gone down the side a bit more and everyone could still overtake you. They don't seem to like you doing that. Someone I know was the first recorded accident on this bypass in the first year it was open. Not too serious. It's turned into Asda Express now. Interesting. I'm just a bit concerned now that they don't do fuel card anymore. Oh, I'm not going to go when I don't know that. 146,152, that's actually quite a good price. I wonder if that's affecting the other fuel station. Not affecting them cunts. It's 5 pence a litre dearer there. Because I probably explained this before, but I have fuel card for diesel, but it doesn't do petrol. However, you can put petrol on it. You just pay the normal rate. See, I could have gone down there, but I don't really like going that way. I'll just see if there's a place to park in the high street. The problem is, you start at this end, you start at the quieter end, and you're maybe going past a couple that are quite a long way from shop. Doesn't look good, does it? It's a bit congested. People stopped in stupid places there. I don't know what he's doing there hardly. I wouldn't dare stop there. It's 2:07. Steaming up this pickup. It does work quite well if you put the extra demist on, because it blows it on with the aircon on. But it's just quite chilly. It says it's 8 degrees, but I don't know if it is or not. It's really unlikely. It feels quite nearly icy. That's the temperature in on here, the engine bay. That's cleared now. But it's 3:30, and today our sunset is technically 3:38. But even here it'll have gone down already. We have this at home. It goes behind the hill nearly an hour before the stated time. And the advantage on this bottom row, you don't need to worry about somebody reversing out at the same time as you're doing it from the opposite side. Right. But I always think that the shop lights are obviously designed to look, shall we say, pretty or pleasing, and they often look really quite sort of inviting. I'm actually quite tempted to go down to Whitby or somewhere and do some like Christmas lights and shop lights and things at some point. As far as now, there's still a few leaves hanging on. There's a birch tree across the other side of Sainsbury's parking. Is still hanging on. Just considering it's been at least -5 even here, and quite windy, it's amazing. It's always surprising though. Obviously we're still before Christmas. You can't really be thinking about true spring, but as soon as you get past Christmas into January, snowdrops and crocuses start to appear. Jaguar. Sainsbury's were doing a bit of a diversity. They didn't have a purple-haired woman. They had a punk woman with a Mohican on the checkout, so I avoided her. Not deliberately, but there was a much more mumsy one on the other one, so I went to her. This is probably the only time I'll come down here and need my headlights on. I don't really need them on, because this does have very bright running lights, but you just feel a bit like you should have them on when everyone else has them on. But they say this is pretty much the earliest sunset today, literally in 4 minutes technically. So I must remember there were a lot of people in there were coughing and spluttering, so I should keep my fingers away from my mouth and not eat anything until I've washed my hands properly. Definitely will help. I know one thing I would like to be cycling along this road this time of day, because I know it's funny, but people don't expect to see a bicycle and you haven't even got any lights on. there's something gone horribly wrong there. Loads of water. It almost looks like a water pipe burst to me. Very clean water.